Burnley will face Arsenal. We knew this game would probably go longer than the 90 minutes. It did. It finished on penalties, and it finished in Real Madrid's favour. It is they who march on to the next stages of the competition they love so dearly. Frank Leboeuf was watching it for us, but Craig, it's hard to look at the whole game right now and go past that moment, that penalty from Julian Alvarez, because that's going to be the biggest talking point after this clash.
It is. It's very controversial. The double kick, we couldn't see the ball move. It didn't look as if it even rotated at all. And yet, a quarter-final place at stake, a Madrid derby, a hostile atmosphere, an end-to-end game in the end, is decided by going to VAR and basically putting a magnifying glass to see if Julian Alvarez gets the minusest of touches with the left foot, which they say he does, so we accept that. And if you're a stickler for the rules and the laws, then okay. But this is the kind of over-officiating that this game has become with the technology and all that goes with it, that we are now, it seems, unless I'm proven wrong when we possibly get a better angle of it, is that the most minute of touch, we say his big toe or his lace, they've deemed to be ruling that out. I think in such an emotionally charged game, that is very, very, very harsh. We've seen instances where balls have almost left the spot, and that's obvious. This was not obvious.
No. What we're looking for is a change in the spin of the ball. When there is that second touch, usually the ball takes an upward trajectory with spin, with overspin, because of that second touch. There is no change in the spin of the ball here. And so whatever angles we have been shown and the world was shown actually don't tell us the whole story. But there has to be some sort of image in which they saw something that was clearly and obviously a second touch from Julian Alvarez. We haven't seen it. And we're anxious to see it. Because if indeed it comes down to what you were just talking about there, Craig, that we have to indeed make the image larger and magnifying glass, and now we're sort of looking for reasons as to why this penalty should not count, then I think this is a slippery slope that I don't believe this game deserved. The quality of this match deserved being decided on that.
We are going to air as soon as this game has finished tonight, so we haven't seen any replays yet or any magnified images.
Other than the ones that we saw.
The point is
the ball never moved or rotated. And so the touch, when you're running up, and sorry, because I know Frank will want to have his opinion on it. When you're running up at a reasonable pace to take a penalty and you make a contact with the ball, any reasonable contact, that ball is going to move, right? And normally when the ball moves, normally the penalty is missed, because then when the striking foot comes down, it's catching the ball in the wrong point. And more often than not, the penalty is shanked or skied or missed.
Obviously, a second touch, you would see it.
Yeah, and so the point being is here that when you're running up with such force, if there was any touch of note, the ball would have moved. And to go back again and look at that technology and say, I just can't get my head around. We have a Madrid derby to get into the quarterfinals of the Champions League. It is absolutely humongous, and we are talking about a team. Now, they may not have won it in the end. We don't know, because Llorente missed his penalty, Vasquez missed his penalty. But this is the crux of how they end up in that position. And it just feels to me that this is the wrong way we're going with this sort of micromanaging these very small, situations that really have no effect on what happened.
What do you think, Frank?
Well, I'm for the VAR, but the thing is, I want to have the evidence of it if there is a situation like that. If we have an offside for half of an inch, as long as we see it and we have the evidence of it, we believe, and an offside is an offside. And it's the same for that. As soon as we see something and we have an evidence of it, we're going to believe it. And if Alvarez touched twice the ball, we want to see it. But because we didn't see anything, because we didn't see the ball moving at first, we cannot believe it. And then we go to wondering and asking answers. We want to see VAR proving us that he touched the ball twice. And therefore, technology will work. But now we can have question marks and say, no, we don't have the evidence of it. We didn't see the ball. We were football players. We know when the ball moves and we know a double touch. We know it works. And normally, you look ridiculous. But it worked very well for Alvarez if he touched twice. But we want to have the evidence of it. And we don't. That's where we cannot agree with the VAR and the rules of it.
I bet you there's umpteen cases before VAR and even with VAR where a player hasn't slipped, but the standing foot has come down so close to the ball, because that can happen sometimes. You try and plant your standing foot, and I bet there's cases there's been a touch. The best thing I can say there is his left big toe at that angle may or may not have touched the ball. Jesus, man, this is the Champions League, right? Is this where we are? There's all these VAR naysayers out there, and I'm not one of them, right? I like the technology, but you have to use it sensibly. And this is just going to fuel the people that saying this is just taking all the emotion and skill and spontaneity out of the game. Come on, oh, for God's sake, just absolutely.
No, you're not convinced.
Craig, no, we're not convinced because we can see now, again, we've been football players, that his left foot doesn't touch the ball. It happened to me when I slipped, and I remember also Beckham slipping just before a penalty. I was lucky. It went on the top corner. I was very fortunate. But I tell you, if my left foot would have touched the ball while I wanted to touch it to kick it with the right foot, I would have missed it. That's for sure. And we see, because they put it higher, bigger, that the ball is not moving. Therefore, how can you prove that he made a double touch? It's impossible. Therefore, you have to accept the goal.
Now, we do have to say, obviously, they're our own pictures because they're going straight out after the game.
Well,
not
listen,
any
somebody will
replays
come
from
up with
UEFA
some nerd will come up with something from one of the 40 cameras around the game.
It doesn't have to be a nerd.
I'm angry. I'm actually angry about that. But let's go to the game.
Let's go to the game.
Let's go to the game. I think Real Madrid can, although they got better, it's not going well for them in terms of their performances. That front three was awful. Midfield wasn't great. Bellingham got better, for sure. Atleti, obviously, a great start to the game, magnificent start to the game. It was a perfect scenario to get the crowd behind you. And then it was only Thibaut Courtois making saves, particularly early on. It's a difficult one to talk about now because I just feel so much has sort of gone on and kind of forgot almost some of the things that have happened. But, I thought I'd let both teams, I give them a lot of credit for the attitude and the fight, and some of Atleti's shape and their work rate was tremendous. Courtois did have to make some saves, maybe some small moments like the Correa one when he came on. He could have laid it off. There was one or two others. Maybe a little lucky on the penalty because Mbappe threw himself down. There's no doubt about that.
But then Vinny Sky in the penalty is obviously a big moment from the 90 minutes as well.
That's a big moment. But Real Madrid, if they're going to win this competition, and they've had a huge slice of luck today, I think, with what's going on, they're going to have to play a lot better. And we saw them being super energetic at the end, and Ali mentioned that if some of them had been that energetic during the game, maybe that would have been put to bed. So I think it's another one where you just go, and they said it in the commentary, it just feels like somehow Real Madrid will come out on top. That is what they do, and you have to give them a lot of credit for it. But in terms of a performance, as a generalisation, I didn't think it was very good at all. Because
they do usually come out on top, but it didn't have that feeling from them tonight against Atleti.
What gave it away? The fact that they gave up a goal 20 seconds in?
But even what Craig's saying afterwards, like some of the big names that you're expected to deliver that just not looking themselves tonight.
No, and as we're watching the game, one of the comments that I made to UK is that I just don't see how Real Madrid create enough chances tonight. The way that they were playing, it just didn't feel like they had enough of an edge to be able to create enough spaces with movement away from the ball, with individual moments, because it really comes down to individual moments when we're talking about Real Madrid. You have to have Mbappe at his best. You have to have Vini at his best. You have to have Rodrigo at his best, Bellingham at his best, and hope that one of them has an individual moment of brilliance. And that wasn't happening today. In fact, the penalty for Real Madrid comes because it's the one time, and when I say the one time, I am talking the one single time in which we saw Kylian Mbappe running at defenders. Now, some of that is credit to Atletico Madrid, given the fact that they set up so well defensively and that they weren't allowing that space for Kylian Mbappe. But the other thing that has to be said is that Kylian Mbappe's movement away from the ball is horrendous and was horrendous tonight. A lot of standing around, too much standing around. If I'm a defender, Frank would know this, right? If I'm a defender and you have a guy with the quickness and the speed of Kylian Mbappe, do you want Kylian Mbappe posting up as he was a lot of the time this game, in which he's just kind of backing up into defenders? As a defender, would you prefer that, or would you prefer Kylian Mbappe running off of your shoulder into blind spots, moving around, shifting inside, shifting outside? Of course you want him to sit here and be posting up, because you know he's right there in front of you. Mbappe was all too comfortable, just, yeah, give me the ball here, post up, post up, post up, or I'll come to the ball. Never threatening in the side, never threatening behind, little quick movements. Even with the positioning of Atletico Madrid, that was so very good, you can still do little probes in behind that move defenders. And if they track your run, that means that you're opening the space for somebody else. But that never happens for Real Madrid. That's Kylian Mbappe. Vini Jr. Walking. And you just missed a penalty. And you're still walking. Madrid derby. Champions League. How can it get any bigger? You just missed a penalty. You would imagine that there would be a situation, an emotional reaction to that. Said, I have to make up for this. Instead, you have to have other players tracking back for him because he's walking. That is unacceptable.
Did you expect more from Madrid tonight, Frank?
Oh yes, a lot more. I mean, on the 4 half that we saw, I think Atletico Madrid won 3 out of 4. I mean, they were defensively organized as a masterpiece, and they knew how to handle the Real Madrid very slow motion attacks. That was easy for them. And when they had the ball, I think Atleti did very well, and they had, as Craig mentioned, many chances to score as well. So I'm very disappointed by Real, but you know, that's Real Madrid. At the end of the day, they did it. But it's true, if we talk about Mbappe, I think we can make a statement. Mbappe is not a striker. He's never been a striker. He needs spaces. He needs to get his pace up in order to attack. And when he had the chance to do so one time, as Ale said, he did it. And now he's unstoppable. But because of the setback of Atleti, it was impossible to do so. So if you want to fight or disorganize Mbappe, you sit back, you just wait, you don't give spaces, he won't do anything because he's not that type of player. So I don't want to see Mbappe playing as a striker because he won't be useful as he should be. Then there are some tension. I felt really tensions between Bellingham and Vini Jr. We saw Bellingham, shouting to some players. He wasn't very happy, especially against Vini. I don't know if how the atmosphere is in the dressing room, but I felt some tension. I didn't feel some communications between them. There are some question marks about the way they want to play. They want to attack. But overall, I think Atleti showed, especially at the Santiago Bernabeu, but also today, that they were more organized. They were more willing of doing something. I think there are like 12 kilometers, I would say 7 miles different between Real Madrid and Atletico Madrid runnings. That's impossible. In Champions League, that's too big gap. It's impossible to do that. Meaning that Atleti worked hard, Real Madrid didn't do so, but it was enough to go through.
You can always talk about Jude Bellingham not playing well at times, and he grew into that game, but I don't think you can ever, or very often, question his work rate and his commitment. And he certainly gets frustrated, and I think he was getting frustrated with some of those front guys. I'm not surprised Real Madrid didn't play particularly well because they are a tough nut Atleti to crack, very organised, one of the most organised sides in Europe. They are at times lazy up front, and I think we see in these games why Barcelona have beaten them pretty comfortably twice already this season. And yes, in the first game at the Bernabeu, there was numerous chances for Real Madrid to beat this offside trap, but they weren't smart enough. And they got punished in the end. And I think when you look at how they played tonight, you can see why Barca have scored goals against them. And Barca are their big rivals along with Atleti for this La Liga title. And the reason I say that is when they lose the ball and they're so disjointed and there's a lack of tracking back, it really exposes the midfield. And in the midfield it included Luka Modric, and that also can't happen these days, not from the start, because they got overrun in there, is that when teams get at their back four, you can really expose them, Real Madrid. Now, Barca are better at exposing a back four, arguably, than any other team in Europe at the moment. Because when Rafinha, Lewandowski and Lamine Yamal get at you, they are quick, they are creating chances, and they are skinning defenders. Now, although Atleti created chances today, they do not have the clinical efficiency of the Barca front line. Few do, not many do. And I think we can see that unless Real Madrid get that side of the game right, you can't lose the ball constantly and have 4 or 5 out of the game. You can't. Because the real top sides with the best forwards in the game will punish you. The downside for Atleti is they don't have that. They have Griezmann, who's clever, but he's not the quickest. They have Alvarez, who's running about all over the place, great player, but he's kind of doing it on his own. And then they go to the big Sorloth and Correa. They're good players, but they haven't got the quality that Barca have. And I think we can see why Barca, and maybe even the Bayern Munichs or whoever it is, might expose this back line if Real Madrid don't work as a team. Tonight they did not work as a team, if we're being honest, and they got away with it.
It's really odd because we're talking about Real Madrid almost in a negative sense. And they're the ones that actually advance. They're the ones still in the competition. And yet you feel a whole lot more encouraged about the performance and the personality and the character of Atletico Madrid. And so when it comes down to actually making it through, and whether that is indeed the test of success, well, Real Madrid have done the job. They moved on. But to your point, Craig, I think there are too many holes in this team for Carlo Ancelotti to be able to cover all those holes and still play Rodrigo, Mbappe, Vini Jr., Bellingham all at the same time. While it is true that Atletico Madrid is limited compared to Barcelona, not limited in general, but compared to Barcelona, yes, they are limited, you still find moments in the match in which Julian Alvarez is getting open in transition, or Giuliano Simeone is carrying the ball without anybody actually challenging the moment of transition for Atletico Madrid. Angel Correa getting in behind. Sorloth, who's not the quickest guy, also having an opportunity in the extra time. And what's really happening here for Real Madrid is that you have Fede Valverde playing as a right back today from the start because you fear what happens if you play Lucas Vázquez. But in having Valverde cover the right-hand side, then you give up something in the middle. Because now you don't have his legs and his personality and his character and his energy in the midfield. And so then you're sort of choosing, where am I going to go and get stretched if you're Carlo Ancelotti? If I move this guy over to that side, I'm exposed here. If I move him here, then I'm exposed over there. It doesn't seem like he has the answers in order to accommodate those 3 guys playing up top and then have balance with the team. They were able to survive today. But as we spin it forward, it's difficult to see once they get into a level of the competition in which we're talking about teams that can expose those frailties defensively more consistently than Atletico Madrid did today, then that's the trouble for Real Madrid because their performances have fallen and they're depending on the individual moment for them to win matches.
Again, jumping ahead a little bit, the team they have next might fall into that category too. Arsenal. It's Arsenal they've got, isn't it?
Yeah.
And again, a side who are probably stronger at the back than Real Madrid, are probably stronger in the middle of the park. If you look at the moment, you know, Camavinga's on the bench, it's Tchouaméni and Modric, and look at Modric, that's not a strong midfield in terms of legs. But again, it's something that they might get away with if they play in this kind of manner again, because the one problem Arsenal have is their front line is kind of decimated. You know, Bukayo Saka won't be back, Gabriel Jesus is out, Kai Havertz, for what it's worth, is out, and so they've struggled in that department as well. And so again, this is a game that might fit them well. If this front line play in the same manner, which is if they don't get their way and they lose the ball, or they cough up possession and they don't chase back, that do Arsenal have the personnel in the attacking areas to take advantage of that? Really, Atleti didn't quite have that, or could have put this game away. So that could be a good fit for them as we get further in the competition. If they do go through, if they don't improve these facets of the game, I really don't buy into, well, it's Real Madrid, the Champions League is theirs because this is what they do, blah, blah, blah. I think it's been exposed this season, and I think if he doesn't get it right, it will be exposed again.
And before we do go on and talk more about the quarterfinals, Frank, what does this do for Atleti? We saw Diego Simeone at the end rallying the troops, thanking all the fans for everything that he saw, because obviously they will feel on the night it was unjust for them. What does this result do for them?
Another disappointment. I'd say that they have a black cat, and the black cat is Real Madrid. And when you are, sharing a city, it's the worst of the worst. And they worked hard. I think they deserve to go through, but they don't. They lost the final in 2016. Every time they play against Real Madrid, they have an issue, and at the end of the day, they don't go through. So it's becoming a trauma for them, and very disappointing, because they work so hard. I mean, you cannot complain about anything. It's only about details, about maybe mislack. I don't know what can you say. You have to keep on believing that one day is gonna change, but it doesn't. And Real Madrid showed again that in Champions League, even if they're not good, they're quite lucky and they go through. And it happened when they won against Liverpool in the final of the Champions League. Before they advanced against Paris Saint-Germain, against Chelsea, against Manchester City, where they were better than them, but they went through. And that's a fact. That's a statement. Real Madrid is almost unbeatable in the Champions League. And you can be Atletico Madrid, be ready for that. It must be so frustrating for the players, for the fans, and for the coach, because they worked hard, they deserved, but they didn't do it.
It's got to be really tough for Diego Simeone, and it's got to be really tough for these players. When you look at the performance, today in particular, can you get a better performance out of Pablo Barrios? I don't think so. Can Giuliano Simeone be any better than he was today? And no, I don't think there is much higher of a ceiling for certain individual players who were really good today for Atletico Madrid. You're getting the best out of your players, and still that doesn't seem to be good enough. That's the part that is puzzling for Diego Simeone and frustrating for these players. And oh, by the way, the reason he's getting people fired up and the stadium once the game is over, because, reminder, they're playing Barcelona on the weekend. And so he needs to find a way to pick up these players and say, I need more of that, more of the same coming up this weekend, because we want to stay in the title race. It's really difficult to do.
It's a great chance not to feel sorry for yourself, isn't it?
Yeah.
They didn't play well against Getafe, got beat. Can't afford any more of those if they're going to stay in the title race. So when you have this scenario where you're in the dressing room and you're so deflated, and maybe you feel wronged by that referee decision or whatever it is the worst case scenario is you've got 10 days to stew on it. They've got a few days, and they've got to pick themselves up, brush themselves down, and get themselves back in this title race. From a player, that's what you want. You want to get back out there and get going again.